Hi everyone, my name is Rob and I'm the lead pastor of Bethel Church. A lot of you don't know this, but Bethel's been around for 100 years. So as we get ready to celebrate our 100th birthday, I wanted to share some of its history with you. 100 years ago, Bethel was started by George Whitehead, a very successful businessman in his day who gave up his business to start a unique church. They began to grow, going from a living room to a modest space above an A&P market. Fast forward a little bit, God blessed Bethel and they were able to start building a church home for themselves at Allegheny in Kensington. And guess what happened as they were building? The stock market crash of 1929. Great timing, huh? Through many difficult times and much sacrifice, the building was finally completed several years later and Bethel became a light in that community, continuing to think outside the box and how it could connect with the surrounding people. Check out their banjo band. Pretty innovative, huh? Bethel was the first church in this city to be air conditioned, and they used it as a draw to bring people in on hot summer days and nights. And long before churches had huge bus ministries in the 1970s, Bethel had a fleet of VW microbuses. They would send them all throughout the neighborhoods, picking up hundreds and hundreds of kids and bringing them in to hear the good news of Jesus. Bethel's always been a church that's been willing to do whatever it takes to reach people. It's always been a church with the courage to change, to shift what it does in order to better connect with the culture and reach the people around it, which was the case in the 1980s, when Bethel was struggling as the community around it changed. So they set out to learn from churches around them that were growing. And they realized they needed to change how they did services in order to connect with the unchurched people all around them. Years before any churches were launching or even talking about multi-sites, Bethel launched a Spanish church from their current location at Allegheny, while simultaneously launching a brand new church and a formal funeral home on Oxford Avenue near 5 Points in Northeast Philly. Little by little, both churches grew. The new church at Oxford Avenue shifted how it did church. Gone were the suits and ties and dresses, and instead everyone dressed casual. It sounds ordinary today, doesn't it? But back in the 80s, this was radical stuff. And instead of using hymns in their services, they used choruses. Again, another shift to reach the people who weren't in church yet. That decision paid off in the early 90s as the church at Oxford built an auditorium that could seat almost 200 people. Because as they continued shifting what they did, God allowed them to reach more and more people. And in April of 1996, Bethel hired me, Pastor Rob, a young 30-year-old Eagles fanatic with a slight Dorito addiction. Talk about taking chances. God continued to bless, and we quickly added a second service, then a third, and then a fourth. We had so many kids that we had to convert our 2 on-site car garages to make room for the kids. These converted garages weren't fancy, but they gave us room to impact dozens and dozens of kids for Jesus. And the coolest thing about our growth was the diversity. We reflected the community as our church became a place where Latinos and African Americans worshiped alongside the white core that started this location in the mid-80s. So this beautiful multiracial group grew to about 700, and then we stopped growing because we were out of room, not just in our sanctuary, but in our parking lot. We only had about 40 parking spots, so our lot was always full, and each weekend, people would drive through our parking lot several times and then leave because we had no more parking. Even though we were doing 4 Sunday services, our auditorium was filled and our kids' classes were maxed out. We were out of room. After a 2-year search of over 100 different properties, God brought us to our new home here. And boy, it sure didn't look good. It was the original but abandoned movie theater at the Franklin Mills Mall, and it had been vacant for several years. The building was totally empty with only the walls standing because everything else had been sold. So this was a shell, and a beat-up shell at that. But we were willing to take a chance and do something totally different. We sold our building at Oxford Avenue and used all the money and lots more to renovate this space because we knew we could reach so many more people here. To make the auditorium, we had to tear down one of the walls that split the movie theaters and support the structure with 2 steel beams. But as the beams were going up, we realized that the beams were about a foot short, leaving us to do even more renovations. So in October of 2004, we officially moved in and started services, determined to keep changing and to keep morphing into a church that creates a welcoming place for all people to experience God's best. And believe me, in 2004, our services looked nothing like they do today. But throughout our time here, we've continued shifting. So as we celebrate Bethel's 100th birthday, I hope you see that Bethel's always changed. We've always shifted to better be able to reach the people around us. Why have we changed so much? Why have we shifted as much as we have as a church? Because for the last 100 years, it's always been about reaching the one who isn't here yet. Jesus said he came to seek and save the lost. And for 100 years, Bethel's partnered with Jesus to reach the lost. And we're unashamed about our willingness to do whatever it takes to reach people. Because it's not about filling Bethel up. It's about filling heaven up. Just since we've moved into this building, we've seen hundreds and hundreds of people commit their lives to Christ and more than 1,000 people who have gone public through baptism. Dozens of families have been put back together through the love of Jesus, and countless people have been set free from addiction. Loads of children have made the decision to make Jesus their forever friend, and lots of teens know that they're never alone, because here at Bethel, we're family. That's why we do what we do. So happy 100th birthday, Bethel. It's been an absolutely amazing 100 years. Can't wait to see what changes are in store for the next 100. Thanks.